The certified letter felt like a shard of ice in my hand. Foreclosure notice. The words blurred, mocking the 20 years I'd poured into Vance Legacy Homes. This house, my Denver sanctuary, wasn't just brick and mortar. It was my life's work, earned with sweat and sacrifice. I stormed into our shared office, the letter crumpled in my fist. My brother, Liam, didn't even look up from his polished desk. "What is this?" I demanded, slamming the notice down. He finally met my gaze, his eyes cold and empty. "I handled it, Ethan. A necessary expense." An expense? He had secretly leveraged our family's legacy, my entire life, to cover a personal lawsuit. And in that moment, I knew I hadn't just lost my house, I'd lost my brother. Liam adjusted his $1,000 tie, a picture of unearned confidence. "It was a mistake," he said, his voice smooth as polished granite. "A woman, she threatened to ruin our reputation. I protected the family name, Ethan. I protected you." Protected me? We were supposed to be a team. I was the architect, the foundation. He was the salesman, the handshake. Our father built Vance Legacy Homes from the ground up. Literally. I learned to swing a hammer at 10. Liam learned to charm investors at 20. I built the assets. He spent the profits. "You protected the name by bankrupting it?" I shot back, my voice dangerously low. "By taking my home?" He waved a dismissive hand as if swatting away a fly. "It's just a house, a temporary setback. We'll get another contract, we'll build more. It's what we do." He didn't get it. He saw 2 decades of my life, my sweat, my sacrifices, the evenings I missed with my kids, as replaceable inventory, a line item on a balance sheet he just torched. He saw my life's work as collateral. In his world of easy charm and quick fixes, everything was disposable. He had no idea what he'd just unleashed. His words hung in the air, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was 16 again, standing on the 3rd-floor scaffolding of our Aspen Ridge project. Liam, barely 14, was showing off for some friends below, swinging a heavy framing hammer like a toy. I told him to stop, to get down. He just laughed. The hammer slipped, cartwheeling through the air before crashing through the bay window of the $500,000 home next door. Our father arrived, his face a thundercloud. I took a deep breath, ready to explain what happened. But Liam spoke first, tears already welling in his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I was just trying to help Ethan, to be like him." My father's anger dissolved. He looked at me, his gaze hard. "You're the older brother, Ethan. You should have been watching him. I spent that entire summer working for free, paying off the damage brick by brick, while Liam was praised for his ambition. It was always like this. Liam created the fire. I was expected to put it out. When our father passed, he left us the company with a final piece of advice. He gripped my hand, his knuckles bony and frail. "Ethan," he'd rasped, "you are the foundation, solid, dependable." Then he turned to Liam. "And you, son, you are the face, the one they'll remember." He thought he was giving us a balance, a partnership. What he really gave Liam was a license, a blank check backed by my life's work. I remembered the Monaco deal 2 years ago. Liam had promised a client a custom build on a geological nightmare of a plot. He'd signed the papers over champagne and handshakes, ignoring my frantic voicemails about the survey reports. He charmed them, secured the contract, and took the credit. I was the one who spent the next 18 months sleeping in a trailer on site, personally overseeing the reinforcement of the entire foundation, losing $250,000 in profits just to keep the house from sliding down the mountain. To protect the family name, I looked at my brother, standing there in his perfect suit, a stranger wearing a familiar face. He hadn't just used our company to settle a lawsuit. He had used me, he always had. My father had called me the foundation, and for 20 years I had let my brother build his entire reckless life on top of me. But a foundation can crack, and when it does, everything built upon it comes crashing down. I walked out of the office, the sound of my own breathing loud in my ears. The anger had burned away, leaving something cold and heavy in its place: clarity. Liam wasn't just reckless, he was a parasite, and I had been his willing host for 30 years. That night I let myself into the silent office with my own key. The space we'd shared for 2 decades now felt like a crime scene. I sat at my desk, the glow of the monitor painting my face in the darkness, and I started digging. Our father had taught me to build houses, but he'd also taught me to build a business. I knew every financial artery of Vance Legacy Homes. I bypassed the clean, client-facing books Liam managed and went straight into the raw server data, the digital foundation of our company. It didn't take long. I was looking for a single catastrophic expense. I found it disguised under Project Overrun Costs, Aspen Ridge 2, a 7-figure wire transfer to a boutique law firm in Vail I'd never heard of. My blood ran cold. The Aspen Ridge 2 project was my baby. I'd personally redesigned the main lodge after a mudslide scare, saving the entire development. Liam had used my triumph to bury his shame. I hacked into his private server directory, a simple password, our mother's birthday, a sentimental touch he knew I'd never guess he was capable of. And there it was. A folder labeled Discretion. Inside was the settlement. The woman wasn't some stranger, it was Eliza, a brilliant young architect I had personally mentored. She'd left the firm abruptly 6 months ago, citing a family emergency. Liam had told me himself, his face a mask of sympathy. The documents told a different story. A story of unwanted advances, of late-night calls, of career threats. He hadn't just made a mistake. He had systematically tormented an employee, a young woman whose talent I had been nurturing, and then used my work to buy her silence. He hadn't protected the family name. He had held it for ransom. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place when I found the loan documents. To fund the settlement, Liam had taken out a secondary line of credit against our completed properties. It was a massive, high-interest loan that effectively bled the company dry. The primary collateral listed was a single property, a guarantee to the bank that this loan would be honored above all others. It was my address. My home. He needed both our signatures. I stared at the screen, at the clean, forged loop of my own name, an almost perfect imitation. He hadn't just leveraged the company, he had specifically targeted me. He had taken the one thing that was mine and mine alone and sacrificed it on the altar of his own cowardice. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking in the silence. The office felt like a tomb. Liam thought the foundation was just concrete and rebar you could pour and forget. He never understood that a true foundation has a memory. It bears the weight, it feels the stress, and it knows exactly when the structure above it has become rotten. My father had called me the foundation, and Liam the face. A face can be rearranged, it can be broken, and I had just found the hammer. I shut down the computer, the screen going black, but the forged signature remained, seared onto the back of my eyelids. The rage had cooled into something far more dangerous: purpose. It was the same feeling I got when staring at a problem plot of land, seeing not the mud and rock, but the steel and concrete needed to make it unshakable. Liam had built a house of cards on my foundation. I was about to introduce a strong wind. I didn't sleep that night. I planned. Every lie, every shortcut, every dollar he'd stolen. They weren't just betrayals anymore. They were blueprints. The next morning, I walked into the office wearing my best suit. Liam was on the phone, laughing, one hand gesturing expansively as he closed another deal built on my reputation. He saw me and his smile tightened for a fraction of a second before oozing back into place. He ended the call. "Ethan," he said, his tone dripping with false concern. "Good to see you. I was worried." "You shouldn't be," I said, my voice even. I walked over to the coffee machine and poured myself a cup, my hand perfectly steady. "I had a lot of time to think last night. You were right." He leaned back in his chair, a flicker of surprise in his eyes, quickly replaced by smug satisfaction. He thought he'd won. Right about what? "It's just a house," I said, turning to face him. I took a slow sip of coffee. "A temporary setback. The important thing is the company, the family name." I used his own hollow words, polishing them like stones I was about to throw. "You did what you thought you had to do to protect it. I understand that now." Relief washed over his face so completely it was almost comical. He saw submission. He saw his reliable older brother, the foundation, ready to absorb another shock. "Exactly, Ethan. I knew you'd come around. We'll land the Peterson contract, and this will all be a bad memory." "The Peterson contract?" I nodded, a faint smile on my lips. "Of course. It's our biggest one to date. It deserves a proper celebration, a launch party." He lit up. "Now you're talking, a big splash. Show the whole city that Vance Legacy Homes is stronger than ever." "That's the idea," I said, my smile not reaching my eyes. "I'll handle all the arrangements. I want to invite everyone. Our biggest clients, our investors, even our most promising former employees. A real family reunion." I held his gaze. "I'll make sure it's a party no one will ever forget." For the next 2 weeks, I became the perfect partner. I worked alongside Liam, my face a mask of resolute calm. I sat in on meetings for the Peterson contract, nodding at the right times, offering structural advice, playing my role as the dependable foundation. Liam, basking in my apparent surrender, became more arrogant than ever. He saw my cooperation not as a strategy, but as an inevitability. He believed he was the sun, and I was just a planet caught in his orbit, destined to circle him forever. He had no idea I was steering us both toward a black hole. My evenings were a different story. They were spent in the meticulous construction of his ruin. The launch party became my new project, and I designed it with the same precision I would a skyscraper. The venue was the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons downtown, a place of glass and steel with a panoramic view of the city we had helped build. I curated the guest list myself, a perfect storm of Denver's real estate elite, our most loyal clients, the ones who trusted my work, our biggest investors, the ones who trusted Liam's charisma, the bankers who held our loans, and, of course, Don Peterson himself, the $70 million whale Liam was so desperate to land. Every name on that list was a potential juror in the court of public opinion. My most important invitation, however, wasn't sent on expensive cardstock. I found Eliza's new number through a friend at the Architectural Guild. My hand trembled slightly as I dialed, the first crack in my icy composure. She answered on the third ring, her voice wary. "Eliza, it's Ethan Vance." Silence. I could hear her breathing, the sharp intake of air. "I'm sorry to call you out of the blue," I started, keeping my voice low and steady. "I know why you left Vance Legacy. And I know you were forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement." The silence on the other end stretched, tight as a wire. I can't talk about that, Ethan." "You don't have to," I said quickly. "Just listen. What he did to you, he did to me too, in a different way. He used my work, my name, my home to buy your silence. He buried the truth under a foundation I built." "I'm going to dig it up." I paused, letting the words sink in. "Next Friday, I'm hosting an event, a celebration of our company." "He'll be there? Our investors will be there? I'm going to tell them everything. I have the proof. All of it. The settlement, the forged signature, everything." "What do you want from me?" she whispered, her voice fragile. "Nothing," I said, and I meant it. "I'm not asking you to speak. I'm not asking you to break your NDA and risk a lawsuit. I just want you to be there. I want you to be in the room when the man who tried to erase you is forced to see you, right as his world collapses. You deserve to see it." I gave her the details and told her a ticket would be waiting at the door under a false name. I didn't know if she would come, but I had given her the choice, a choice Liam had stolen from her. Back in the office, under the hum of the fluorescent lights, I assembled my weapon. It was a simple keynote presentation, clean and minimalist, the kind we used to pitch to investors. But instead of architectural renderings, it was a forensic accounting of betrayal. The first slide was a high-resolution scan of the loan document, my forged signature glowing in red. The next showed the wire transfer, funneled through the Aspen Ridge 2 project accounts. Then came the settlement itself, redacted to protect Eliza's privacy but not Liam's culpability. I created a timeline, a simple, damning progression of his lies. I even unearthed emails from the Monaco deal, placing his charming reassurances to the client side by side with my frantic warnings about geological instability. It was a pattern, a blueprint of his character. I saved it to a thumb drive, a tiny silver rectangle that held the weight of his entire life. The day of the party, Liam was electric, buzzing with a victor's energy. He clapped me on the shoulder as we stood in the half-empty ballroom, watching the staff make the final preparations. "You outdid yourself, brother," he beamed, gesturing at the glittering chandeliers. "This is it. This is the night we put all that unpleasantness behind us. The night we show Don Peterson we're untouchable." "It will definitely be a new beginning," I said, my voice flat. He didn't notice the edge in my tone. He was too busy looking at his own reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Make sure the presentation is ready to go. The usual stuff. Our past successes, future projections. But lead with the Peterson project renderings. I want him to see his legacy in our hands." "Don't worry," I replied, patting the pocket where the thumb drive rested against my chest. "The presentation is ready, and I promise you, it will be all about legacy." The guests began to arrive, a river of expensive suits and polite laughter. I shook hands, I smiled. I played the part of the gracious host. Liam worked the room like a master, his voice booming, his charm on full display. He was in his element, the center of attention, the face of the company. He had no idea he was the guest of honor at his own execution. I saw Don Peterson arrive, a formidable man with shrewd eyes. Liam was on him in a second, a drink in his hand. Then, through the crowd, I saw her, Eliza. She was standing near the back, dressed in a simple, elegant black dress. She looked different, stronger. Our eyes met across the ballroom. I gave her a slow, almost imperceptible nod. She returned it. The final piece was in place. The foundation was set. The supports were about to be kicked out. I walked towards the stage, the thumb drive feeling heavy as a stone in my hand. It was time to start the demolition. I walked to the podium. The chatter in the ballroom softened to a murmur, then to a respectful silence. A single spotlight found me, pinning me to the stage. I could see every face clearly. Liam, standing beside Don Peterson, gave me a thumbs up, his smile wide and predatory. He thought this was his coronation. "Good evening," I began, my voice carrying through the room steady and clear. "Thank you all for coming. We're here tonight to celebrate the future of Vance Legacy Homes. A future built on a strong foundation." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. I looked directly at Liam. "But before we look forward, we must be honest about what we're building upon." Liam's smile faltered, a hairline crack in his perfect facade. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. I clicked the remote in my hand. The massive screen behind me lit up, not with architectural renderings, but with a stark black-and-white document. My signature, forged and looped, was circled in crimson. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. "This," I said, my voice dropping an octave, "is a lie. A forgery used to secure a 7-figure loan against an asset that was not the company's to leverage. It was my home." Liam started forward, his face draining of all color. "Ethan, what the hell are you doing? This is some kind of joke. The wrong file." "It's the right file, Liam," I said, not taking my eyes off the crowd. I clicked again. The wire transfer appeared, showing the exact amount funneled through the Aspen Ridge 2 project, my project, to a law firm in Vail. This is where the money went, classified as a project overrun. But the only thing that had overrun was my brother's depravity. Murmurs erupted. Phones were already being raised, recording. I saw the bankers whispering furiously to one another. Don Peterson's face was unreadable, a mask of cold, hard granite. "Stop this," Liam hissed, trying to get to the stage, but a few curious onlookers blocked his path. I ignored him. Click. An email chain. Liam's charming assurances to the Monaco client, promising the impossible. Beside it, my own frantic warnings about soil instability, time-stamped from the same day. "A foundation isn't just a suggestion," I said to the audience. "It's a promise. A promise of safety, of integrity. My brother sees promises as hurdles to be charmed over." Finally, I clicked to the redacted settlement agreement. I didn't name her. I didn't have to. This is the necessary expense that cost me my home. This is the price of my brother's discretion. He didn't protect the family name. He used it as a shield to hide his own predatory behavior, to silence a talented young architect he harassed out of a career. Across the room, I saw Eliza. She stood tall, her chin up, no longer a victim in the shadows but a silent, irrefutable witness to the truth. Every eye followed my gaze to her, and in that moment, her presence was more damning than any document on the screen. "Ethan, you're insane. She's lying. This is a corporate takeover." Liam finally shoved his way to the foot of the stage, his voice a desperate shriek. His perfect suit was rumpled, his face slick with sweat. The mask was gone. I looked down at him, not with anger, but with a profound, weary finality. "Our father called me the foundation, and you the face," I said, my voice low but carrying over his shouts. He was wrong. A face without character is just a mask. And a foundation will always bear the weight. But it also knows exactly when the structure it supports has become rotten to the core. This company is not rotten, just the man who thought he owned it. I turned to the stunned audience. Vance Legacy Homes is not my brother. It is the work of my hands, the integrity of my designs, and the trust you have placed in me. That foundation remains. Don Peterson pushed past a frozen Liam and walked directly to the stage. He didn't look at the wreck of a man my brother had become. He looked at me, his shrewd eyes assessing. He extended a hand. "Mr. Vance," he said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the chaos. "My contract is with the foundation, not the facade. Call my office in the morning. We'll be restructuring with you." He shook my hand firmly, a silent transfer of power. As he walked away, the room erupted. Clients swarmed my team. Investors shouted into their phones. And Liam just stood there, a statue of ruin in the wreckage he had created, utterly and completely alone. I looked out at the chaos, the thumb drive feeling weightless in my pocket. The house of cards had fallen, and I was the only one left standing on solid ground. The sound in the ballroom was a physical force, a wave of shock and frantic energy. I didn't watch Liam crumble. I didn't need to. I could feel the gravity of his world collapsing from the stage. My work there was done. I stepped down from the podium, my legs feeling strangely steady. The crowd parted for me, their faces a mixture of awe and pity, not for me, but for the ghost of a man left behind. My eyes found Eliza. She hadn't moved from her spot at the back of the room. As I approached, the noise of the room seemed to fade into a distant hum. She didn't offer a handshake or a hug. She simply looked at me, her eyes clear for the first time since I'd known her. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through everything. It wasn't a thank you for revenge, it was for acknowledgement, for the truth. "He built his success on burying people, Eliza," I replied, my own voice low. "I just handed everyone a shovel." A small, genuine smile touched her lips. "Be careful, Ethan, now you have to build something on all this cleared ground." She nodded once, a gesture of finality and freedom, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd, her own chapter finally closed. As I turned toward the exit, a hand grabbed my arm. It was Liam. His face was a contorted mask of rage and disbelief. His $1,000 suit looked like a costume on a broken mannequin. "My life, you destroyed my life," he choked out, his voice raw. I pulled my arm free from his grasp, not with anger but with the dispassionate movement of disconnecting a faulty wire. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw nothing left of the brother I once knew, just a hollow space where a man used to be. "No, Liam," I said, my voice cold and final. "You built your life on a faulty foundation. It was always going to collapse. I just chose the time and place." I left him standing there, swallowed by the chaos he'd created. I walked out of the ballroom, past the stunned faces and ringing phones, and didn't look back. I had lost my house, but tonight, walking into the cool Denver air, I felt like I had finally come home. The ground beneath my feet felt solid for the first time in years. Was my revenge justified, Or did exposing all of his secrets just make me as bad as him?